Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our June 10th, 2026 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. For those of you who are with us here in person, we have paper copies of our agenda available on the table back by the door you came in. And we also have the full packet with all materials available on our website as always. Reviewing our full agenda, first we'll consider the consent agenda, after which we will move on to general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we do apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission, and we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes if comfortable doing so, and please address your comments directly to the Commission. We will hear from people in person first, then we'll look to our Zoom meeting attendees. Please plan to use the raise your hand function if you wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond, to general public comments on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment concludes, we will move to our regular business agenda for tonight. There's just one item on our regular agenda. For each action item, we'll hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the Commission, and then we will open the floor for public comment that is relevant to that item. Once public comment is concluded, we'll bring the item back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote on an action item. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. And with that, Commissioners, folks, we have a proclamation before our consent agenda this evening, which Commissioner Anderson will read for us, and then whoever is here for that proclamation will be welcome to come up and provide some additional comments afterwards.
All right, so tonight we have Douglas County, Kansas Public Servants, Past and Present Tribute Gallery. Whereas on Saturday, July 4th, 2026, our nation will commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And whereas this historic milestone provides an opportunity to reflect on our nation's past, honor the contributions of all Americans, and consider the future we hope to create for generations to come. And whereas the City of Lawrence will host Summerfest from 4 to 10 p.m. on July 4th to celebrate Independence Day. And whereas in honor of America 250, the Robert J. Dole Institute of Politics, Watkins Museum of History, the City of Lawrence, and Douglas County, Kansas, collaborated to recognize the countless individuals in Douglas County who help democracy function, strengthen our community, and protect and serve the public each day. And whereas the Douglas County, Kansas Public Servants Past and Present Tribute Gallery will debut at Summerfest on July 4th to honor current and former public servants from across Douglas County, including educators, first responders, military service members and veterans, city and county employees, university staff and faculty, and state and federal workers. And now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners do hereby recognize America 250 and the Douglas County, Kansas Public Servants Past and Present Tribute Gallery at Summerfest, and encourage all current and former public servants from across Douglas County or their friends or family members to submit a photo by June 20th, 2026 to be included in the gallery exhibition publicservantstribute.douglascountykansashistory.org, adopted this day, the 10th day of June 2026 by the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas.
Commissioner Anderson, go ahead and push that button on the microphone so that you see the green light, and then share whatever additional comments you have with us.
Thank you, Chair Reed. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, County staff. My name is Porter Arneal, and I'm with the city's Parks, Recreation, and Culture Department, which oversees the Summerfest event. This collaborative project, my fantastic collaborative team is here as well. Just want to acknowledge them, was initiated by the Watkins Museum of History and the Robert J. Dole Institute of Politics at the University of Kansas in partnership with Douglas County and the city of Lawrence. And we are honoring the individuals whose service, leadership, and dedication have helped shape our community. Much of this work happens quietly behind the scenes. This exhibit shines a light on the people who have devoted their time, talents, and careers to serving others. Together, these photographs tell the story of the many individuals whose efforts have helped make Lawrence and Douglas County such special places to live, work, and visit. We are very excited to debut the gallery during Summerfest at the Douglas County Fairgrounds on July 4th as part of the America at 250 commemoration. It is a fitting opportunity to celebrate our shared history and the people who continue to serve our community every day. Thank you again for your support for our public service members, past and present.
Thank you so much, Porter. We've got a signed proclamation for you to take with you. We appreciate this. I'm really excited to see it. I think it's a super cool idea. Thank you so much. All right, commissioners, with that, we'll move into our consent agenda. Would any of you like to pull anything for questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Would anybody in the public like to pull anything from the consent agenda for further questions? Any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, bring it back to the commission. Ready for a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Great. With that, we will move into general public comments. If there's anybody here who would like to provide general public comment about items not on today's agenda, please go ahead and come forward. It looks like, well, it looks like you got to unmute the mic again, whoever's first. Yeah, as long as you mention it, that's okay. We do it when we are expecting lots of public comment. Thank you for checking.
Okay. Tim Hamilton, 66044. I wanted to address you about possible broken dreams. So I teach at Johnson County Community College and I ride the K-10 connector. And the K-10 connector made a radical change. This is the bus that connects Lawrence and Johnson County Community College. In October of 2024, the pickup spot at Peaslee Tech, where there was a park and ride, was ended. Johnson County Transit made that decision. When they made that decision, a lot of Douglas County students, because I would see them, they would park their jalopies, not so nice cars in the parking lot for Peaslee Tech. These are people who are studying to be dental technicians, who are wearing their culinary nursing program. There's students I know who want to be a social worker, or they want to be an English teacher. God knows why you want those, but they do. Those are their dreams. And when that park and ride went away, everything shifted to the central bus station, which is just about a mile from campus, that has no parking whatsoever. So those students who are on East Lawrence, Eudora, Baldwin City, Douglas County students their transportation ended unless they're going to provide it themselves. And a lot of the cars that I would see, because I rode this and saw this, they're just not going to be able to pursue their education anymore. And I think that's a real tragedy. As it is right now, the city of Lawrence has a partnership with Johnson County Transit. They kick in about $120,000 to $190,000 a year, and they would divide it 50-50 based on the ridership. I have been trying to bring back the Peaslee Tech stop for Douglas County students. My estimations are that will cost $40,000 to $80,000 because of diesel at $5 a gallon, 7 miles per gallon with the bus. Currently, Douglas County kicks in zero, nothing. Douglas County has been free riding off of Johnson County. So in bringing this forward to Johnson County, I mean, they didn't say this explicitly, but the implied message is, why should we pay for Douglas County students, for Eudora, for Baldwin City. Why should we pay for them? For Overland Park students, Lenexa students, sure, that are taking classes at KU, yeah, we'll pay that freight. But why should we pay the Douglas County kids? City of Lawrence might say the same thing. Why should we pay for Eudora and those others? So I want to bring that forward. I'll be sending you some information, asking you to put that on the agenda in the future to consider kicking in the
Thank
fair
you.
share.
Thank you for
Thank
your comments. Anybody else here to provide general public comment this evening? Okay. Any virtual hands raised, Sarah? All right. Go ahead and close general public comment and move on to our one and only regular agenda item. And I will invite Sarah to introduce.
I can kick this off, and our treasurer, treasurer Adam Rains, who's still recovering from an injury, is coming to the podium. Commissioners, we don't really have a formal presentation prepared for you for this item. We tried to outline in the packet some of the issues associated here. And I want to state up front, we don't need to decide tonight whether or not we want to increase the fee. I'm looking for direction on how we want, what you would like me to include in the proposed budget for motor vehicle fees. Adam, if you're okay, I can kind of give a little bit of the history of where we were on this. You know, Douglas County is a part of the big 5 counties in Kansas, lobbied the state for Senate Bill 325, which would allow local units of government to increase the fee for motor vehicle transactions. That is because currently we are subsidizing with property tax dollars this state service. So if you local taxpayers who do not have a vehicle are in portion paying for this service for residents that do have vehicles. So it's been part of our legislative agenda for a period of time. That bill was passed. Douglas County is currently at a $3 fee, and the treasurer can make a decision to go up to $5. That has been in place for a long period of time. Moving from anywhere above 5 to 10 is a part of this new legislation that in theory could sunset or needs to be extended into 2029. And so the spreadsheet shows what that revenue generates. We're looking for some direction from the commission on how to proceed for revenue planning for the budget. Adam, do you have some other thing? I know I kind of wanted you to walk them through the fee. So maybe if you could start with that, we could.
I think that's it. So
Yeah.
we'll get
Great.
out of here. Cool. So I'll walk you through the fees, kind of the history of it, what that fee is supposed to do. And so currently we charge $3 fee. So anytime a customer walks in, it was considered a facility fee. So anytime they're coming into our facility, we're charging $3 to that customer per vehicle. So if you own 2 vehicles, you're coming in, you're going to pay $6. And what that fee goes to is help supporting the motor vehicle fund. We were wanting to change that. Well, the statute, the Senate Bill 325, changed that from a facility fee to a transaction fee. So what will happen now, starting July 1st, is any customer will pay the additional $3 per vehicle. So whether you do it by mail, you do it online, you walk into our office, you do it by Dropbox, you're going to pay that additional $3. What we're hoping to do in the future is change that to the 10. And that's kind of what you see in that spreadsheet. You'll see the fees there and what each one does. So again, that fee stays with us, stays with the treasurer's office into the motor vehicle operation, which pays for motor vehicle operating motor vehicle. The spreadsheet that you'll see a revenue from only the fee. So that's only what we're collecting from that $3 fee. So every transaction, that's what we're projecting we'll collect for 2027. Excuse me. That also includes other fees that's the revenue we only collect from that fee. The total motor vehicle revenue you see is everything that we collect from operating. So transactions that we get a little bit of fees from. So we're looking at registrations, we get like 75 cents. Titles, we get $2, et cetera, et cetera. There's nickel and dime all through those. So you'll see that motor vehicle revenue, that's the total of everything we're bringing in. And that's our total revenue for the year. So again, the revenue from the fee only is just the $3 fee. The total motor vehicle revenue is everything we're bringing in. And that's money that we keep. We're not sending that off to the state. We're not sending it to those entities that we do business with, like parks, wildlife and parks. That's money we're keeping here within Douglas County. You get over to the motor vehicle expenses. That's what we project working with budget, what we project 2027 being for operating for motor vehicle. That includes all our staff, all our benefits, commodities, supplies, all of that. We moved everything over, or not, we didn't move everything over. That's everything that we've combined into that. Then that net position is just the revenue and expenses, how it balances out. So if we look at the $3, we would still be in the hole $605,000. If you go down to the 10, you'll see that we would be positive by about $48,000. And that's kind of what we're projecting based on transactions from 2025. 2025, we saw the highest transactions we've done ever. So, I mean, that's good news because we're collecting potentially more money. Let me get back to my notes here. So that was kind of the previous structure and how it's kind of changed over time. So again, what we're looking at today is what what you want to use for your budgeting purposes. As you kind of get into that, do you want to budget for the $10? Do you want to budget for the $5? Do you want to budget for the $6? My authority only goes up to $5. From 6 to 10 would need to come from you all and what you all kind of decide and agree on. There was one thing and now it slipped my mind.
I wanted to clarify too. So the estimates of the expense that are on that spreadsheet, and I was trying to find my email in case, and Brooke may need to come up here and help clarify it for me. These are based off of 2026 projections. So just 2026 personnel costs. So this does not include market merit for 2027. It does not include enhanced benefit costs for 2027. So, I really feel like our total operating expense will be above 1.7 for 2027. But this was what we had at the time when we were putting that together for you all. It includes all motor vehicle staff. It does not include what we would call tax staff. They're not included in this budget. They are supported by the general fund and paid for with property taxes. And it includes a portion of Adam's salary and benefits and a portion of his deputy's salary and benefits included in those expenses.
Ready for questions?
Sure. Yeah.
I'll throw one more thing out there. We don't need the decision today. The decision to change the fee has to come by October. That's when we have to let KDOR know, Department of Revenue know what we want that fee to be. If we tell them nothing, it stays at $3. So we would have to know by October. So this kind of is a good, to me, timeline. You get kind of you go through your budget, and then after budget, maybe we make a decision on what you want that fee to be and how much support you want to provide, financial support you want to provide motor vehicle.
Prior to my time, but how did you pay for the building where all this occurs now? Was that a bond or just cash?
It was leased. Yeah, the building on 31st Street, we leased. We pay rent.
Oh, I thought you purchased it.
Now, the
sixth-
current building
Yeah.
we own, but the building on 31st Street before we
Yeah,
leased.
no, I knew that was.
Okay, yeah,
leased.
we bought this building.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
there's no payment. It's
he paid cash.
just cash.
Yeah, so there's no bond payment included in this
Okay.
expense.
Do you include any imputed rent in your budget, Adam's budget?
No, we did not.
Okay.
And you have to, most of the, I mean, a lot of the equipment that's provided for motor vehicle is provided by the state on printers or.
It is not provided by the state. It's
Okay.
provided by IT. And that, is a whole nother discussion of, if we had enough money, I think ideally it would be nice that we also include this, but IT currently it's in their budget of what it costs. And we got, 20 plus computers, printers, scanners, the list goes on.
And Adam and I have talked, I'd really love us to bring printing motor vehicle statements in-house so that we could customize them. They're incredibly wonky and clunky and hard for customers to understand. It doesn't allow us to put new upcoming information on them. We can't insert our flyers and newsletters to improve our communication tools. But if we're going to do that, we have to pay for it ourselves. The state of Kansas will not help us with that. So it's an expensive thing to bring in-house. If we had this fee, it could be used to help offset those expenses as well. And you're going to see a request in your proposed 27 budget from the treasurer's office with what the cost of bringing that in-house would be.
So the $3 currently charged, because it's a facility fee, you only pay it if you go to the physical office. If you pay by mail, that fee's not in there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, under the new regulation, you're going to pay X amount of dollars, whether you do it by mail or walk in, or it's by transaction.
By that transaction. There's specific transactions that gets charged to, title and registrations and personalized plates are the biggest ones that we see. And those is what that fee will be charged to.
That part of it, we don't have a choice on.
Correct.
We can't say, well, we just want it to stay facility. The state's not letting us do that.
If you buy a new car and you have to get a title and a license plate, is that two different transactions?
That is not. So that's what we consider a title and registration. It's one transaction. You pay that fee one time.
Okay, thanks.
You have something more to say?
I was going to say, going into Sarah's with the printing renewal notices, within the statute, it does say it wants a committee from the Treasurers Association. That's what we're working on now. Hopefully we have an idea who's on that, but to come together with legislators to present what we've done with basically with the money. Are we just, happy with being fully funded? Are we improving services for customers? If we look at some other counties, they're planning to hire more staff to reduce their wait times. So I think going into that request coming in from budget of like, what are we going to do with the money? Are we just going to sit on it and say we're happy because now we're fully funded, or are we going to try to improve services for our residents?
If you bring printing in-house, do you have to buy a special printer?
No.
We would
It would
outsource
depend, like,
it.
Yeah, we pay for the mailing and the postage. That's what the expense is the postage and the printing and
We figure about $1 a piece of paper. Mail or postage is about 70 cents, I think.
Yeah.
60 some cents. So that's the majority of your cost right there. It's just postage.
So by bringing it in-house, we would contract printing with a printer in
Yep.
town.
And we have lots of those contracts right now for printing appraisal notices and tax roll notices and R&R notices. So we're real good at that part of the process. It's just the postage cost. And right now the state pays for all that. So it is a real expense if we bring it in-house, but so that's why it's one of those things you can think about at budget time. Is it worth that opportunity cost?
We use a company called Mail Services. Mail Services used to do it for Johnson County. So they have kind of that history, that relationship. We're not kind of reinventing the wheel here with printing those. So it would be, to me, beneficial.
So Adam, just to make sure I'm tracking the change from the facility fee to the transaction fee, and it's not reflected in this spreadsheet, which I wouldn't expect it to be, but as part of your analysis, I'm sure it fluctuates every year, although maybe there is an average that your office is able to track with how many in-person versus online or mailed or dropped off transactions. Do you have any sense of just the fact that now the state legislature has made it a universal fee, no matter which way you pay? do you have a sense of how much that might increase the revenues? Or do you feel like it's true that there's a vast majority of people have been come in person, and therefore that facility fee is maybe going to be a negligible bump up by being more inclusive?
So I don't know if I completely understand your question. You want to
Yeah,
share
sorry.
it over
I'm getting
again?
A little bit. I guess I'm just trying to understand as part of your analysis now that, to Sarah's point, that we don't have a choice about keeping the $3 fee to facilities only, which might have been a suggestion I had, like, that was a little bit of an incentive for paying for using other ways that help reduce staff time and all that, or wait times at the facility. But now that we don't have a choice about that and it's going to be universally applied, do you have a sense of how much, if we were to leave it at $3 and not increase it at all yet, naturally there's going to be some bump up because now more transactions. Do you have any sense of
We
how
did,
significant that
and
is?
I thought I had it on part of the spreadsheet, but I didn't. I think I estimated for 2026, so we're looking at from July to December. That's when that fee goes in. I think it was going to be an additional, gosh, I want to say it was like $90,000 extra we
Okay.
would bring in. So
So,
and I can get
not
the
even
numbers.
breaking 100K. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I was trying to get a sense of. Like, do you think it's going to looking at these numbers, I wouldn't guess that alone would bump up several 100,000, but you're remembering that it's likely under 100,000. So
Yeah, that's the additional
relatively
revenue we'll get
not
this year.
nothing, but relatively negligible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I can get you those numbers. I thought I had on the bottom here, but I don't think I did.
And then a technical question is, and I feel sort of silly for asking it, I don't think you explained it, and if you did and I missed it, sorry. I don't understand the current, the column, the current that's the same number over and over again between the revenue from only fee and the total motor vehicle fee. Can you, the revenue from only the fee and the total motor vehicle revenue, you have this current column with this, what is that?
So the current is what we're currently collecting just from that $3 facility fee. And so I included in there because when we get to the revenue side, we need to reduce what we're currently charging to add in what we could potentially charge, if that makes sense. So we're no longer collecting that $3 fee. It's going to be a transaction fee. And so we're subtracting out that 83.
Oh, that's the distinction you were making.
And
Okay.
then adding in that 312. So yeah, you get a good look at what we're collecting every year just from that facility fee is roughly 83,000 a year.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Since you've made the move to the 6th Street location, what do your wait times look like?
When we looked at it in May, our wait times, and don't quote me on this, went down by, I would say, 4 to 5 minutes, which is good. I think having everyone in one building, makes things more efficient when we're looking at breaks and lunches and things like that. So,
Okay, so you have pretty good wait times right now.
Yep.
Okay, so so then moving to a transaction, are you anticipating that maybe will you potentially have more online transactions?
I don't foresee like any wild changes to like how customers are paying. I think they're set in their ways. If you're used to coming in, you're going to come in next year. If you're used to paying by mail, you're probably going to pay by mail next year. So I don't see like wild changes in how people are paying. I think it'll stay pretty stagnant with that.
Okay, so go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to add to doing it online and via mail is not an automated process for this transaction. It isn't just snap, doesn't happen. Somebody still has to put something back in an envelope with a sticker and send it back to you. So it is more efficient than coming in person, but it is not completely automated, therefore needing less staff and those types of things. And
Yeah, I mean, mail, when we say mail, it's an individual in the back processing mail. Yes, they can get through more registrations quicker because the information's right there in front of them. They can process, the check's ready to go. It does take longer, I would say roughly 5 minutes for renewal in person. I would say roughly a minute if we're doing it by mail. Web tags, yes, we're going in, we're renewing everyone. We're balancing that cash store, and then we're basically pulling transactions out to fold in mail.
Okay,
So.
thank you. That was going to be my next question. If they were online transactions, does that reduce your staff workload, or does it just balance out?
It definitely reduces because I mean, we
Okay.
can process, several hundred within a couple hours. By the time we're starting to ending, we might be looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours. So yeah, to run through 200 renewals in 2 hours is pretty good for us. One thing benefit that we kind of talked about, the printing renewal notices, that could bring a lockbox service. So those mail renewals will free up a staff member to work on other things. Mail is being processed by the bank. We get the file back, upload, and go through that process like we would for web tags. So doing, 200 within an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours is going to be more efficient than one person processing those for half a day or more.
Okay, all right. So even if we had a slightly increased fee and then that did allow for freeing up some staff time, depending on how individuals paid their transaction, we could potentially have reduced staff compensation, I'm going to say, if it did free up some of their time and bring in more revenue potentially.
I mean, the revenue's
Depending on
already-
how individuals paid for their transaction.
The revenues won't necessarily change because that transaction is still being processed, whether it's by mail or by an individual at the front line. So I don't think revenues, you're not going to see that change there. It would just be we're utilizing our staff more efficiently instead of having them in the back or having them up front, working through walk-in customers. They can process mail and process just those more efficiently.
More efficiently.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, I remember when the big five counties were advocating for this, and one of the things that came up quite a bit was the amount of the property tax that we pay on motor vehicles that goes back to Kansas Department of Revenue. Am I misunderstanding that?
So the property tax doesn't go back to Department of Revenue. I mean, we're keeping that and distributing it through whatever entity, the City of Lawrence, Baldwin, Eudora, those tax entities. The registration, that's what goes back to the state. So, you pay $30 for registration. We keep 75 cents. The rest goes back to KDOR. KDOR then breaks that up to go to KDOT and then keep some for themselves. So if you're looking at a transaction, majority of those fees, we're not even retaining ourselves. So, we're collecting property tax for potentially the City of Lawrence. We're collecting wildlife and park passes for wildlife and parks. We're collecting, a K-State plate for K-State. We're collecting those fees, and then we're collecting registration for KDOR/KDOT. We're collecting law enforcement fees for law enforcement and training centers. So there's, majority of the fees, and we're keeping, I would say on average, less than $10 per transaction. So we're doing all of this work. Some transactions obviously take longer than others. But yeah, we're not keeping, I would say, majority of the funds. We're sending those out to those different entities.
Thanks.
Commissioners, other questions? Okay, well, this is a regular agenda item, so we will go ahead and open up the floor for public comment before we have any further discussion. Anybody here wish to provide public comment on this item? Go ahead and come on up. And if you're online, please plan to use the raise your hand function.
John M. 66049. It's not a lot of money, I understand, but, and I'm all for you getting what you need to run your operation. I don't see why we need to pay. There's only a certain level you need for him to run his operation. I don't see any purpose in going beyond that so that he has a savings cushion. So I think we should limit it to that. I just have a comment on Sarah educated me last time we talked about vehicle costs, that what prohibits the citizens from using a credit card, which would be far more efficient for the whole process, is the state. I don't know if we have the opportunity to lobby, but if we're engaged in that conversation with the state, it seems to me that people plunking down their credit card number when they pay their bill would ease a substantial part of manual mail processing. And that would make the whole operation a lot more efficient. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Appreciate your comments. Come on up.
Tim Hamilton, 66044. The irony is, because my last name's Hamilton, I just finished doing my registration about 3 weeks ago. And you cannot change your address online. Because I moved, actually I moved like a block and a half from one part of University Heights to another. You cannot do that online. The only reason I went online is because I wanted to save myself time. So I finished doing all of that. And then I'm working around and working around. So Sarah is absolutely correct that the website is very wonky. I think that's a polite way of saying it. It needs to be updated. Younger people are starting to drive as us old timers fall off, and those younger people are all going to be registered. Most of them will be registering online. So Commissioner Anderson's, I think, on target that the online is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So if the extra money will help our gentlemen get a better online product, then that is what we ought to do. Whatever can help streamline our online so that you can do the payments by credit card, so that you can do your change of address, all of that jazz, because it is the year 2026 and people are going to be doing it online. And I appreciate Commissioner Kelly asking about how the taxes get divided up, because I didn't know that, and I appreciate the education. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment, Tim. Anybody else here want to provide public comment on this item? We have any virtual hands, Sarah? All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for comments, discussion.
I'd like to start with Adam. We talked a lot about this, and maybe Mr. Hamilton, before he leaves, might like to hear the response. So we talked a lot about this, about the system. The system comes from the state, right? We have no control over the system, and every treasurer in the 5 counties would love to overhaul that system. Is that accurate?
That's true. So I think that's one of the frustrations with motor vehicle in general is we get no say in how that system operates. We get no say in what that system is. It's coming straight from KDOR. Every county in the state of Kansas uses the same system. And if you've come in at the end of the month, you might notice it takes a little bit longer. It's because every county in the state of Kansas is packed busy with customers. So yeah, we don't get a say in it. There's conversation obviously about going with something different, but I don't know how much input that treasurers would be able to provide, because KDOR will do what KDOR wants to do and legislators want to do. So it'd be nice if they included us and took our opinions. But yeah, that's where we're at.
And I do want to clarify, and Adam will correct me if I'm wrong. You can use a credit card, but you just pay a fee. You have to pay the surcharge fee. And that is what we have no choice. We cannot absorb that fee. We're not required by state law. We are not allowed to absorb that fee.
Yep. You can't pay by credit card. We got, Tap to Pay, Google Pay, all that stuff. You can't pay it by a credit card. We don't necessarily like paying by credit card via mail just because you get into security issues. If your mail is lost and we don't even receive it, your credit card number is theoretically out there somewhere, and easier to steal some of that information.
My kids who are in their 20s don't even have a checkbook. So the notion of how you're going to pay is just, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, commissioners, I have heard that we're being asked to give some direction. There's no formal recommendation in front of us, but what we've heard is that our treasurer has the authority to go ahead and bump it up to 5, but to go beyond that is our decision. So I just kind of want to get a feel for how commissioners are feeling about everything we just learned and about whether or not we want to bump up. I mean, for me, I think the conversation for us here is sort of limited to, do we think that more than $5 is where we want to go and want to aim for in terms, so for Sarah's purposes in budgeting revenues this year, and then for Adam's planning purposes within the office, or do we think that we need to have a more gradual, smaller step up to absorb this change? I have my thoughts, but I'm interested to hear other commissioners first.
The consumer is going to pay one way or the other, either through property taxes, if they own property, or through the service fee. So I'm in favor of having it come through a service fee with the hope that property taxes won't go up.
Yeah, I would say, Commissioner Dorsey, I mean, I tend to agree, and I think I prefer the idea of it's a fee for service. So the person with the vehicles, the person buying wildlife parks passes, whatever other transactions, that it's a direct fee for a service that that individual or that family is receiving and engaging in, and that it is not being, that it helps us structure our budget in a way that it will no longer be, or well, that it will be less subsidized by the pool of property taxes. Not all property, not all vehicle owners who are paying this fee are property owners, but certainly not all property owners are necessarily paying registration fees, although that might be common and might be the norm. It's certainly not everybody. And there are people who own property here that don't live here, right? And they're registering their vehicles wherever they might live. And so I certainly prefer the idea that there's a direct fee for service, and that it's easier to understand, it's cleaner to understand how these services are paid for, and that certainly if we can shrink the subsidizing that county property tax dollars are doing and have done historically to support the work of motor vehicles, I'm supportive of that. I think for me, the question is sort of how much do we step it up, and what's the cadence of that, and what feels fair.
One thing, and I confirmed this with Sarah, like in 2029, this ability could go away. I guess Sarah and I had a conversation about, like, will it go away? Adam might have opinions on that, on whether the legislature, I mean, this was something Johnson County felt very strongly about. They actually, my understanding is they reduced the amount of service that they were giving. So you would see very long lines, so that they didn't put property tax dollars to it, making it tough, I would think, for frontline staff when you're waiting hours and hours and hours. So, once this fee is in place, that gets them to maybe the type of service that we are lucky to have here. How do we feel if that isn't? And it's hard to know in my mind, like, if it falls off in 2029, we want to maintain that level of service. Are we prepared to bring back those property taxes if we do? Because I agree. I think, the thing that sort of does it for me is the person who owns multiple vehicles. If you own multiple vehicles, the fee would happen multiple times, and that's the choice you make if you own multiple vehicles. But I am sort of in the back of my mind wanting to think about what would happen if it didn't, and is there, I think Commissioner Reed, you said, is how much do we want to increase it to? Is there some buffer that we want there? I don't know the answer. I'm interested to hear what other commissioners think.
And I'm kind of curious the classification of what goes into motor vehicle. So what is that whole bucket that would fall into that classification? Because I know a lot of different things fell out this past year. So like we're no longer like boats certain trailers, right? Certain things no longer fall into that, fall into certain classifications that we're no longer taxing or collecting fees on?
Those do not affect motor vehicle. So motor vehicle is strictly like getting a license plate for your car, titles for your car, things like that. So we were collecting boats, kind of that personal property through the tax roll. So we're collecting that in November, in December. Bills go out in November. So completely separate process. So none of that affects the motor vehicle side of things and the fees we collect from there.
So this is cars, trucks.
Cars, trucks, trailers, we're still processing those renewals, although there might not be property taxes on the back end, but we're still processing some of those renewals.
Okay, so would a trailer fall into this particular bucket? This would be a transaction. So if you had a trailer, would that transaction fall into this?
It would, because you're renewing the tags on that trailer.
If it has a license plate,
It has a license.
if it has a license plate, it's included. So motorcycles, but if it does not have a license plate, it's not included.
Okay,
So there's two sides of that trailer, right? So you have your registration, your license plate, and then you have your property tax. The property tax is appraiser's office, getting that bill later. The registration is through our office, which you're paying that transaction fee on.
okay. And so motorcycles would fall into this then, is what we're saying. How about mopeds and or bicycles that now have a motor on them? Would that also fall into this particular classification?
Bicycles do not, because they're not considered a motor vehicle because you can pedal them.
Okay, even though they have a motor?
Correct. If they did not have pedals, then yes, it would be considered a moped, depending on how it's classified with, horsepower and how fast it goes and things like that. But yeah.
Okay, all right. But maybe we could add vehicles or items that have a motor to this particular classification for the county?
It's all done by the state. They make those decisions as to what is licensed and what is not.
Even though we have home rule?
Even though we have home rule. This is a state function. We are
Okay.
collecting these on behalf of the state, and we have very little discretion.
Okay, all right. Okay, just extra revenue there.
It's complicated. I mean, it is complicated because there are some, and I don't know specifics. There are some cities who collect fees for like golf carts.
Yeah,
You
you're
don't have to
licensed to
tag
bike.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to tag those through our office. You do nothing through our office. But the city has their own side program where if you want to drive your golf cart in town, you need to somehow register or pay a fee to say that you have this, and then they're collecting some on the side, but it's nothing through our office. So it can be confusing. If you're looking at like those bikes that are they mopeds? I think that would be something the city could start and collect fees on that.
Okay, but not an opportunity for the county is what you're saying for the bikes that have a
I don't
Motor.
know about the counties. I think that could be up for discussion, but I would say it's probably a possibility.
But it would be statewide. It would be statewide. If it's going to be included in this process statewide, KDOR would have to decide we're now going to require a license on e-bike.
motorized
Yeah,
e-bikes?
we wouldn't be able to require a license plate per se. It would.
All right. Thank you.
So I think I'm hearing consensus that some sort of increase is reasonable. To Commissioner Kelly's point, how much, I noted when the bill passed too that it's a pretty quick sunset, which is weird. I don't really know how common that is. And, I don't read every statute that passes every year.
And
But
an
I'm-
expectation of reporting better services.
Yeah.
For the increase, not paying for the great services we're providing now, but like justifying the new fee. That
That is a very good point. It is a very conditional yes for now. And so I think that's an important point about, facing the fact that we could be reabsorbing the need to subsidize motor vehicles in the way that we have so that the services are good and reliable for folks in our community. So to that end, I mean, my thinking coming into this conversation is that a relatively gradual step up probably makes the most sense. So, going to just $5 seems like something that will probably be pretty not noticeable by most folks. And based on the estimates that we have in front of us, certainly with some other variables to take into account over time, that would off the bat, be able to draw back more than $200,000 of property tax subsidies. And so, I think that's, I was sort of looking at that $5, $6, the potential of doubling the current fee, or which that $6 being something that needs our authority. That's sort of where I'm personally sitting at and thinking that feels reasonable to me. It feels like, we see some clear savings in that way. And perhaps it's not such a significant change that in a few years' time, if the legislature decides not to continue with this bill and claws it back, or lets it sunset rather, that we won't be facing a question of such a significant change. It is hard because the idea that we can roll anywhere from, $200,000 to $400,000 of property tax subsidy back out of the motor vehicle fees for use elsewhere in the county budget. I don't want to say that won't be a significant number for us to reconsider applying property taxes to in 3-4 years time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just sort of thinking out loud about it, and that I guess it does matter to me that the Big Five counties, and I think just the Treasurers Association across the state have lobbied strongly for this, and so it feels important to me that now that the state threw us this bone, say for now, even though it's a conditional bone, that like we do take the opportunity to increase the fee and see how that goes, and see how the numbers shake out and determine, between now and 2029, year over year, whether or not we think stepping it up gradually makes sense. And that decision may be hard to make each of those years, not knowing how the legislature is going to plan or how it's going to react then. But I think at minimum that we should be going up to 5. And I'm interested to know if there's appetite for planning on $6, which would be a doubling of the fee.
Adam, how's this bill written for 2029? It just expires, period?
Expires December 31st, 2029. And it's only the portion from $6 to $10. So the $5 transaction fee will still be in place that the county treasurer can charge. It's just what is required for commissioners to approve from 6 to 10. That's what expires December 31st, 2029.
That's helpful clarity. Thank you. I didn't catch that detail.
So one of the things I had thought about, and I still want staff to go back and kind of check the math and make sure we're, on the right page. I had thought like we could put in a revenue estimate around the $5 fee and then add in like what is the max we could do. And then as you're making budget decisions, and if things are tight and you wanted that revenue, you could make the decision at that time to increase the fee to a higher number to offset other expenses, and kind of treat that like a budget option, like a supplemental request exposed to an expense. This would be an additional revenue lever. Does that make sense?
I got another question, Adam. What if we approve an $8 fee now for 5 years? Does that still go away in 29?
Yes, it'll go away in
So
29.
it'd go back to 5.
It would just, it would go to 8, and then when that sunsets, we would go back to 5. And so every October, we have that opportunity to change that fee. So I would assume in October of 2029, Cador is going to ask, what's your fee going to be next year? If this sunsets, I mean, we would say we would like to stay at 5 or go to $5 unless there's ever conversations that we're like, no, let's do something different. But
And is the effective date January 1st or on a state budget year or?
so it's, I don't know why it's January 1st. So part of the fee, so up to $5, it started July 1st, 2026. What year are we in? And then the $6 to $10 will start January 2027. So with the statute, it was just you get the 5 in July, and then you get the 10 in.
But is the 5 automatic or do you have to?
Yeah, we have to
declare
let
it?
them. So we had to let Cador know in April of what that fee was going to be. It was a pretty quick turnaround from this was approved or this was signed by governor, it's going into law, to you need to let us know. That way we can get it in for July 1st. So we stayed at that $3.
Just to clarify the question that Commissioner Dorsey asked, so since you had to make that decision quickly, you decided to stay flat at the $3 for now instead of bumping up to 5, correct? So now we're having the discussion about whether or not to give guidance to go ahead and budget for and bump up to 5, or if we want to go above and beyond.
And you left it at 3. And so the time to change that would be January 1st, or could it be October?
It would be October. So we have to let them know by October of every year what that fee will change to in January.
Oh, but it still would be January. We just have to decide by.
Right. Yeah.
October.
We just have to let Cador know. That way they can get it into their programming. Yep.
I do. I mean, I think I think it should be associated with the cost of who's doing the vehicle. And I think a bump from 3 to 10 is a lot. So, I do think I would like to, I heard Sarah say we don't have to decide the fee today, but how to plan for it in the budget. And I do like the opportunity of looking at, as we work through the budget, is there an opportunity to provide more tax relief by increasing the fees? You're right, Commissioner Dorsey. Taxpayers are going to pay it either way. They're either going to pay it in fees or they're pay property tax. But I think if we can see it as a way of minimizing the harm of jumping that fee so significantly, I mean, jumping from 3 to 10 is a big jump for some families, especially if you have multiple vehicles there. Is there a way to reduce that impact and protect the county a little bit down the road? That's something I'd like to decide sort of at budget time, which is what I heard Sarah say. That feels good to me. I'd be interested what other commissioners think.
Yeah, I think that feels good to me too. And I appreciate understanding now the distinction about the fact that that sunset date is only specific to the above $6. I didn't understand that part before. So I was, thinking like we go back to, if we have to default back to what the fee was before this passed, which was $3. And then that begs the question, will we be considering a facility fee then and not a transaction fee, which also changes the formula of the equations. So it's at least, some good news that that the $5 can stand, and that if we bump up that and if Sarah budgets for that this year and the commission during our budget decision decide not to go above that, and all we ever stay at is $5, that's something, and that is sustainable. And we don't have to worry so much or contemplate what we might be reabsorbing if once that sunsetting happens. So I agree, Commissioner Kelly. I think that the guidance for Sarah and her team to be able to budget for the $5, the revenue that will be generated by $5 fees is a solid starting point. And then we'll have the opportunity when we have the totality of the budget in front of us next month to consider whether or not a higher fee is a worthwhile strategy. And then as has been discussed, year over year, we would be revisiting that conversation, and the budget looks different year after year. And so therefore the conversations about how much pressure we feel in one way or the other is going to change each year. So I think it makes sense to me that we would start there, and then give some real consideration to whether or not we think any more increase is worthwhile at this time, or if we just want to leave it at that 5. Because I don't think that, I don't think 5 will be felt by many people, or it won't be felt significantly. I don't want to say that there's no impact and that it won't be felt at all, but I wholeheartedly agree, Commissioner Kelly, that 3 to 10 is significant. And I don't want to do that. And even the idea of like my suggestion of doubling the fee feels a little like to me because of the cumulative effect for some families, certainly. So I like the 5 feels easy, and I was happy to see in the spreadsheet that that's still that's more than $200,000 that we expect to be able to have infused into the motor vehicle fund that county property tax payers have been subsidizing for a very long time at this point. Other thoughts, commissioners?
Just that, yeah, I agree 5 is a good starting point. And I do truly wonder if our online transactions are going to increase. If not sooner than later, but surely overall. And just that I look forward to having this conversation in our budget process. Moving all the way to 10 is not something that I'm overly keen on, because I do think that that is just a huge jump for a lot of individuals that I think are already currently strapped. And then when we think about our older adult population that is already potentially living budget to budget, paycheck to paycheck, I think that that could be a considerable strain on individuals that are already seeking to understand how they're going to pay their property taxes currently. So $5 I'm good with, and we'll kind of see how it plays out in the budget process.
That's helpful, commissioners. I appreciate the feedback.
All right. Thank you, Adam. Thanks for being here. And with that, we will move on from our regular agenda, since that's the only item that we have this evening, and move on to appointments, which I don't think we have any queued up, unless anybody wants to unmute and correct me. And with that, we'll move on to the Commissioner Administrator Miscellaneous. And Sarah, we'll start with your memo.
Commissioners, you have my updated memo attached. I wanted to make sure, as the chair knows, she gave a verbal authorization to a state of local disaster emergency declaration related to the thunderstorms that we had earlier this week. That copy of that declaration is attached. Also, it is extended a bit. We are anticipating more severe weather over the next few days, so we made that a little longer. Emergency management is working close. We still have folks that are without power, so we're tracking all of that as we move forward. You have the April minutes of the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council in your packet. As we said, we were going to try to share copies of those minutes as we got them. And next week, we do have a 4:00 work session, and it says detox overview. It's probably a little bit abbreviated. We're going to do an overview of all of the detox services that Douglas County is engaged in through its behavioral health sales tax. Bring all of our partners that work in the detox space together for that work session. Commissioners, that's all I have for you.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll just note that since I live in North Lawrence, right where there seemed to be a little bit of an epicenter of the storm, I was thankfully, I was lucky and we did not receive much damage on our block, but surrounded by quite a bit of damage. And just want to appreciate that there are, as part of this declaration of local disaster, there are no injuries, I believe, or no significant injuries that have been reported as a result of that. So for that, I'm grateful. And I've just had the privilege in the context of a unfortunate situation to see a lot of neighbors helping neighbors, and to see emergency services and law enforcement and LECFM in action and doing really good work to help folks get get back to normal. And so I just want to appreciate that. And I think that these moments that are scary and nerve wracking and then stressful on the other end of it for some people whose homes were significantly damaged. It is just always a good opportunity to reground in how critical our emergency management infrastructure is and emergency services response. And then I think we have a real spirit in this community of showing up for each other and figuring out who's got the chainsaws in the neighborhood and how to start cutting up trees safely and clearing the streets. And hopefully everybody will have their power back on soon enough too. So the only other thing I wanted to mention was I think most of us, I think actually all of us, other than Commissioner Willie, since she's been out of town, got to attend the DECA open house last week. And we talked about it a little bit during our work session earlier, but just wanted to highlight that that was a really special event. And just my impression of, even though I had seen pictures of it and I understood all the stages of planning and development to get to this point where there are 10 new units of housing for women and their children in our community. Really lovely housing, by the way, which I would enjoy living in very much. It was really well done. But my experience of walking up there and seeing that it's a whole new neighborhood got built. Like this really beautiful new neighborhood got built in a beautiful setting with just so much intention poured into that and so many community partners and individuals and public-private partnerships that were involved in that. And it's just a really special thing to highlight and celebrate. And they threw a cool block party to kick it off. I don't have anything else. Commissioners?
So we do have the minutes for the CJCC. And Katie, I just want to say that Katie Fitzgerald did a fantastic job and she presented the strategic plan and annual report. And she'll be meeting with Sarah to kind of figure out how that will be presented to the commission. And so we'll be learning more about how that will be presented to the commission. And next step in that work will be understanding data and metrics. And so we'll be learning more about that in our next quarterly meeting, which will be in August. I also met with DECA and Lori Alvarado and Lawrence Douglas County Health Department, Dr. Akers, to kind of talk about Kratom and 7-0, which will become illegal in Kansas starting on July 1st, 2026. To talk about compliance and enforcement and what that will look like. And I have 3 flyers that they've been working on and not a whole lot around enforcement at this time. There's not a whole lot of support coming from the state around enforcement. And so basically at the local level, each local level is having to kind of figure out enforcement on their own and what enforcement will look like. There's no funding for enforcement. There's no communication and or guidance around enforcement for Kratom and 7-0. And so they're just kind of flying by the seat of their pants and trying to figure it out. And so doing their best, and they're doing a fantastic job. So they will start to kick off some media around this, and they have some flyers that they're going to be sending out to community partners as well as to schools, and doing kind of a soft push right before July 1st so that retailers, tobacco retailers, smoke shops, vape shops are aware that these products will be illegal and they need to come off the shelves, and making them aware of what compliance looks like and what enforcement will look like moving forward.
Thanks for the update, Commissioner. Anything else for the good of the order this evening? Okay, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.